In the morning, I usually bring my wife coffee, and usually I'm up a lot earlier after my deep dive in researching and things. And of course, I always bring up some interesting conversations when she's sort of half asleep. So this morning I came in there and I said, "Hey, Karen, have you ever pondered this idea on the relationship between someone's breath and their microbial diversity?" Of course, she just gives me that look like, "What?" And then I proceeded to talk about, is it the microbial imbalance that can alter someone's mood? Or is it the mood that can affect the microbiome? And her response was, "I need more coffee." So anyway, hopefully you're awake today and I can talk to you about this. But the relationship between your mood and your microbiome is very, very interesting. If you are in kind of a state of anxiety, chronic stress and worry, or depression, your microbiome greatly changes, okay? And your breath changes as well. And this is why when someone's chronically stressed, their breath can become pretty nasty. When someone is in a depressed state chronically, they can develop halitosis. Even the pathogenic microbes that give off that sulfur smell are increased when you're in that state. And a lot of the protective friendly bacteria are diminished. Someone who's even at risk for periodontal infections and disease when they're under chronic stress. But typically when someone is stressed or has anxiety or even a panic attack, their breath changes dramatically. And on the flip side of that, when someone takes an antibiotic or an antifungal and they wipe out their microbial population, that can dramatically affect their mood and their breath because you're altering these microbial communities. So this is why one of the big side effects from an antibiotic is an overgrowth of yeast in your mouth, like thrush. That gives off kind of a bad odor. And if you look at some of the side effects from antibiotics, you could have psychosis, major depression, anxiety, and even panic attacks. Now, as far as one reason for this, a physical reason, we have this spike in cortisol when we go through panic attacks, when we go through chronic stress or worry. We have this spike in cortisol. Cortisol greatly suppresses the diversity of the different types of species of microbes that you have. And it basically paralyzes your immune system, which your microbes are a big, big part. This is why chronic elevation of cortisol can affect your breath because it destroys the microbes. I mean, if you even think about when someone cries, for example, it affects their entire physiology. And the same thing that happens when someone is actually in a chronic state of depression. So brushing your teeth or using perfumes or breath mints are not going to work unless you handle the source of depression or handle the source of anxiety or worry. But on the flip side, if you had an antibiotic and that affect your mood, you have to reestablish this microbial life. But one thing you have to realize, and this is something new for a lot of people, is you don't just have strains of bacteria. You have a complex group of friendly bacteria, friendly yeast, friendly fungus, and they all work together. Very similar to the microbes in the soil. Like when you're gardening, you need the right ratios of bacteria to the fungal population. If you're too heavy in the bacteria and not enough fungus, you're not going to have the mobilization of the nutrients. And so we don't want too much of one population. We want the correct ratio of fungus to bacteria. The same thing in your gut. You should start eating foods that are fermented, for example, that have healthy yeast, as well as bacteria, like kefir, like sauerkraut, things like that. So you have the microbiome, okay? That's all the friendly microbes, but you also have mycobiome. That's MYCO biome. That is the population of friendly funguses in your body. So we need both. And so when you take an antibiotic and you kill off your microbes, and then you get a yeast infection, it's because these yeast and fungus now become competitive. They no longer are friendly. I wanted to just increase your awareness that your mood can affect your microbes, and your microbes can also affect your mood. And you want to identify what is the real cause of that. And you can use your breath as an indicator of what's happening to your microbes, because the quality of your breath is directly related to mainly your balance of the right microbes. I know I've done a lot of videos on chronic stress and depression, and there can be some nutritional reasons for that, like vitamin D is the best nutrient for depression, and vitamin B1 is the best antidote for anxiety. So you might want to try that. But also just being out in the sun, being out in nature, getting more space, changing your environment is so, so, so important versus being stuck in the house, watching the news all day. Very, very bad to keep your mood up. Now, as far as exercise goes, if you compare physical work outside to going to a gym on a treadmill, the physical work outside is going to be hands down way better as a therapy, because it gets your mind off the stress way more than being on a treadmill, especially when you're watching the news on the treadmill. But I do want to say one of the best exercises that I found for mental stress is indoor rock climbing. Boy, there's nothing better than doing rock climbing just to extract you from your stress. But you can do the same thing with hiking outside, and there's many of exercises that will help. Now, of course, your diet is something that I would really focus on, because if you're not on the right eating plan, and if you're doing too many carbs and you're not doing the keto or not doing intermittent fasting especially, boy, that's going to keep you in a lowered mood for sure. But just implementing intermittent fasting has a dramatic effect on the cognitive function. It'll bring you out of anxiety and put you in a great state of mind. Now, I put some links down below, some great videos that you can watch on how to reestablish the friendly flora in your gut. But if you haven't seen my video on panic attacks, it's a simple technique you can do to pull yourself out of not just a panic attack, but any type of anxiety or stress. Check it out right here. Before you go, real quick, I have a course entitled How to Bulletproof Your Immune System. It's a free course. I want you to take it. And here's why. Here's you. Here is your environment. Everyone is focused on this over here, avoiding your environment. But what about here? What about strengthening your immune system? That's what's missing. This course will show you how to bulletproof yourself, and so you can tolerate and resist your environment much better by strengthening your own immune system. I put a link down in the description right down below. Check it out and get signed up today. Hey, before